Howdy, 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 my name is Anashi Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. I'm pretty sure that we're on SCP-801, because it'd be weird if I just stopped at 799. So, that means we're going to be reading 7 Furs, Musical Tank, Predatory Parasols, Alliteration, and A World Without Man, and Poison Wood Foal, which sounds like it's a deer made of wood that's poisonous. So, 7 Furs. Euclid. All iterations of SCP-801 are to be kept in a metal locker on Foundation grounds. Access to 801 for testing purposes is granted to any personnel level 2 and above. All articles of 801 should be dry cleaned after testing. Alright. No further containment procedures aside from standard security are required. SCP-801 is a collection of 7 articles of fur clothing found inside a hunting lodge in the Adirondack Mountains? Where is that? Adirondack. It's been, let's see, it's in northeastern New York, United States. Ah. Interesting. I may have been through those. Attempts to trace the owner of the lodge were unsuccessful, though locals insisted they had seen lights and heard gunshots in the area until recently. Foundation personnel, discovered no further evidence of recent occupation. 801 includes a mink fur coat, a raccoon fur coat. How do you make a fur coat out of a raccoon? A wolf fur coat, a squirrel fur coat, and a sable fur coat. Each coat is of a full body length and includes a hood. Coats are lined with the same black silk and none show any tag or washing instructions despite appearing to be machine assembled. Accompanying the coats are a pair of rabbit skin mittens and a pair of elk skin shoes. That makes sense. That makes sense. That's kinda weird. That's understandable. That's really, really weird. And I don't know what a sable is. Let's find out what a sable is. What is that? The sable is a species of marten, a small carnivorous mammal primarily inhabiting the forest environments of Russia, from the Ural Mountains throughout Siberia and northern Mongolia. Its habitat borders eastern Kazakhstan, China, North Korea, and Hokkaido, Japan. There's also apparently a wrestler called Sable, but that's not what I'm looking for. I don't think the coat is made of the wrestler. Let's see. Gloves are lined in silk, shoes in leather. As with the coats, both appear machine assembled and bear no tags or marks of ownership. The Foundation was called to the site after numerous reports of repeated anomalous animal attacks in the area. Are the coats eating people? Animals were reported to be unusually close to human dwellings and to be abnormally aggressive considering the species involved. Likewise, behavior after captivity was not consistent with the norm. Data expunged. Personnel found 801 lying on the floor of the lodge along with numerous other sets of normal articles of clothing. Donning any article of 801 begins a rapid change in the wearer. Subject begins doubling over in pain as internal changes start. Described variously as excruciating, burning, and like my redacted organs are liquefying, and data expunged. Subjects soon, within 2 minutes, lose both coherent speech and the ability to stand upright. Their vocalizations begin to become less human and more animal as external changes become apparent, according to the which article of clothing is worn. Although subjects may manage to remove the clothing before this stage, no halt in the process takes place. Characteristic is the lengthening of the front of the face into a snout or muzzle, lengthening of the arc of the foot and of the tailbone. 3 minutes into the transition, subject demonstrates signs of extreme pain and fatigue. At this stage, subject begins prodigious vomiting, apparently shedding excess mass and tissue unneeded for the new form. What mass cannot be expelled in this manner enters into an advanced state of cellular deterioration and falls away from the main body, so it just... After 5 minutes, the subject resembles its new form almost entirely. Extreme hair growth begins over the body, apparently interfering with the subject's upper dermal layers, and resulting in expelling much blood from the body along with the newly grown hair. If you want a picture, if you want to imagine how that looks, just go find the video to Michael Jackson's Thriller and watch the part where he turns into a werewolf. That's what it sounds like to me. It's probably... almost definitely much, much worse than that, but that's what I'm thinking of. Upon completion of transition, subjects will be extremely fatigued but not docile. What the hell is that? Oh. That ad caught me off guard. It just sort of... ta-da! Yeah. And care should be taken when caging or terminating test subjects. All subjects thus far have shown extreme and relentless aggression and resistance to pain. When caged and lacking an exterior target, subjects will bite and scratch themselves far past the point of bleeding. One raccoon, transition disposable dude, was found to have gnawed through the contents of its own stomach, while another test subject did expunged. How? It is recommended that all subjects be terminated following testing and examination. Addendum: testing the coats on non-human species has yielded mixed results. Did they try it on 682? I feel like they probably tried it on 682. Placing an ordinary animal inside a coat made from its own species, i.e. placing a raccoon inside of two, or placing the same subject in the coat twice has no effect. However, when placing ordinary animals or sedated transition subjects inside a coat made from a different animal, results in subject transitioning normally for the first 3 minutes before boarding. Resultant subjects are often missing fur or limbs, or otherwise have limbs partially transitioned. In addition, once mass purge has started, subjects may have organs redacted and are unable to support life functions. Most subjects do not live through this process. Addendum 2. Attempting to transition a subject wearing multiple articles, such as 1 and 6 or 7, functions similarly to putting one species inside a non-coincident coat. However, in this case, the transition stops earlier, leaving the subject at least partially conscious, but with partially transitioned limbs, dead, expunged, etc. As these subjects have exhibited the same violent tendencies as those fully transitioned, it is recommended they be terminated immediately. No attempt at communication should be made. Not sure why that counts as a cognito hazard, unless the cognito hazard is this ad down here that caught me off guard. Musical tank. Now, is it a tank full of music, or is it like a army tank that shoots music, or does it play music as it runs over legs? What's it? First, I'm gonna drink some water because, like, I was all set, and then as soon as I started reading my mouth decided to just dry right out. A security perimeter must be maintained at a 15-kilometer radius around SCP-802's territory. Due to the large area needed to be covered and the isolated nature of 802's territory, warning signs, fences, automated security systems, and regular patrols should be sufficient to prevent unauthorized intrusion. No fewer than 3 lines of containment must be maintained within the perimeter at all times. These lines consist of outer perimeter, basic fences, trenches, and concrete and steel vehicle obstacles. Regular patrols with anti-tank weaponry equipped. Immediate perimeter. Additional anti-tank trenches and obstacles. Perimeter must also be secured with an unbroken line of anti-tank mines. Oh, I didn't know that was a thing. I probably should have known that was a thing, though. The inner perimeter. It must be secured with an unbroken line of dragon's teeth. Ooh. Sorry. Anti-tank obstacles constructed out of reinforced concrete. Additional anti-tank mines must be added. Road access to 802's territory is prohibited. The only allowable modes of transportation into the perimeter are either by foot or by air. Under no circumstances are the perimeter defenses to be breached or compromised to allow vehicle access. Only level 3 personnel or higher are allowed within the perimeter. Any unauthorized access can and will immediate termination. So, it appears to be a World War II era Renault Char B1 medium battle tank. Let's find out what that looks like. Images. Okay, so it appears to be one of these dudes. However, unlike regular tanks, it is able to operate on its own. Ooh, spooky. It is unknown whether 802 is sapient or possesses any sort of intelligence at all. But it is clear through long-range infrared scans and constant surveillance that 802 has no physical crew manning it. The tank itself, while operational, is in incredibly poor condition. While personnel have been unable to get close enough to properly examine it, it is clear that it is heavily damaged. The top turret is completely missing, its hull weapon is non-operational, its treads are nearly falling off, and the hull is pitted and worn with age and battle damage. However, it is still capable of operating beyond its projected performance specifications, and is able to achieve speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour, as opposed to the documented 28 kilometers per hour. Infrared scans have also shown signs of trace heat around where the engine should be located, which are inconsistent with the heat signatures of a conventional engine, making 802's primary method of propulsion unknown. 802 is also highly resistant to damage. Attempts to destroy it have been met with failure, as 802 can take repeated hits from anti-tank weapons and remain operational. While the damage caused only seems to be cosmetic at best, it can successfully drive 802 away temporarily. It patrols an area that is roughly 6 square kilometers in the French countryside near Data Expunged. Within this territory are mostly urban ruins that are the remains of the town Data Expunged. Records show that the town was founded in the early 16th century and abandoned in the early 20th century. However, there is no indication of what caused the town's inhabitants to leave. Upon arrival into 802's area of influence, intruders will immediately be shadowed and stalked by 802, which will constantly attack and harass them in any way possible. It is unknown whether 802 has ever left the confines of the ruins. However, it seems to show no interest in attempting to escape and has stayed well within its security parameters. Oddly, the strangest aspect of 802 is that music seems to emanate from within its hull. The same music can also be occasionally heard echoing throughout the entire containment area at night. Analysis from eyewitnesses and from recordings has shown that 802 tends to play music from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The sound quality of this music, however, is incredibly poor. The music is constantly skipping and stuttering as it had been played on an antique vinyl record player in poor condition. Over 19 distinct songs have been classified, while there remain a number more that analysis have... I don't know why I keep yawning, I'm sorry. Analysts have been unable to identify. It is unknown what exactly causes this phenomenon, but it has been hypothesized that it is a form of psychological warfare meant to unnerve and confuse enemies, though this has not been confirmed. Addendum. Due to over 47 casualties since containment, all recon teams are now to consist of disposable dudes with military backgrounds only. It took them long enough to explain what makes it musical, didn't it? Predatory parasols. I'm going to assume they're at least Euclid, because if they're fancy umbrellas that eat things... Yeah, alright. All blank instances of 803 are to be contained in separate biohazard containment cells. We're off to a fantastic start for these umbrellas. The specimens are to be fitted with radio transmitters set to secure channels. One disposable dude is to be provided for experimentation in the event of extreme hostility from 803 instances. One is a currently undetermined number of autonomous machines resembling small umbrellas, averaging 170 centimeters in width and 150 centimeters in height, or centimetres. An average specimen is almost indistinguishable from a normal umbrella. There are no identifying marks or labels on instances of one. When unfolded, a large amount of medical equipment is visible on the underside of one's canopy. These include vials of varying liquids and gases, plastic tubing, syringes, scalpels, various motors and joints, data expunged. All specimens possess the ability to retract, disguise, or otherwise hide this equipment, making identification of one in the field difficult. All attempts to disassemble or deactivate instances of 803 are forbidden by order of Dr. Blank, see Addendum 1. They better have a good damn reason. 2 resembles 1 in almost all respects except for a greatly increased wingspan of 5 meters and a central power system apparently fueled by Redacted. 2 serve as carriers for swarms of 1 on rows of metal hooks that replace the medical equipment found in instances of 1. The primary function of 803 instances appears to be the capture, experimentation, and occasionally vivisection of medium to large mammals using the aforesaid apparatus. Specimens of 2 hunt by either waiting in a large open area or by tumbling through the air using natural updrafts and bursts of compressed air emitted from the tips of the canopy. Upon encountering a viable target, the instance will release its flock of 1, who will proceed to inject a muscle relaxant into the subject and then experiment upon it. Blank percent of subjects survive these procedures, which may involve removal and or transplantation of organs, blood, urine, and cerebrospinal fluid sampling, monitoring of data expunged, and may last up to blank 100 minutes. Surviving subjects report being fully conscious during the experiments, as well as intense pain and feelings of panic. I can imagine that being awake while several umbrellas pull cerebrospinal fluid out of you would be painful and cause panic. I know if an umbrella came at me covered in scalpels, I'd freak out. Flocks of 803 comprise an average of blank individuals, and have been sighted in the following locations: blankety blank blank Brazil, blank Japan, blank Australia, and data expunged. Addendum. On blank 2000 something, several disposable dudes were ordered by research assistant blank to dismantle an instance of 1 using hammers, saws, and wrenches. When the first disposable dude attempted to remove the handle, the specimen violently ruptured. 2 of the 3 disposable dudes were injured by large, sharp pieces of metal from the instance, inflicting wounds comparable to those caused by crossbow bolts fired at close range. 1 died instantly due to a metal rod entering his skull. The second initially survived but later died of viral infections on the carried on the needles of the specimen. The third quickly redacted due to unidentified chemicals within one, with only 1.2 kilos of biological material being recovered. So I'm just going to go ahead and say melted. Research Assistant Blank was severely reprimanded. Addendum 2, on Blankety Blank 2000 Blank, autopsy of a disposable dude captured by one instance during the redacted containment breach discovered a small metallic dodecahedron at the top of the spinal column. The purpose of this object is currently unknown. Aren't dodecahedrons D20s? Isn't that a D20? Okay, it's a D12. So this found a D12 at the top of the spinal column of that person. The world without man. Is Keter. Okay. Well, I don't do the serious Keter voice anymore. But still. I wonder why it's Keter, because I know there was a show called Life After People, and it sounds like this is not that. Until such time as 804 is found to be without any mimetic effect, it is to remain in its original location at the former site of Blank Blank, Alaska, where exposure to the elements prevents its reactivation. A 30 by 30 meter camouflage tarp is to be maintained over 804, and facilities for armed guards and testing are to be maintained 130 meters from its location. Trespassers are to be treated with a Class A amnestics. Amnestics? Okay. And return to the nearest town if data expunged, or terminated at the discretion of on-site security. That's a pretty big jump between give them amnestics and gun them down at the discretion of on-site security. What if the one was like, hey, it's a person! In the event of SCP-804 being approached or seized by a hostile armed force, Contingency 804-X is to be executed. Description: SCP-804 is the remains of an art installation titled World Without Man, revealed on Blank Blank 2000 something by the defunct artist group Unulmat Paramasta Malamasta? Does that mean something? Or is that specifically here? That didn't answer anything. Might be. Seems to be from Finland? According to documentation retrieved and deleted from the artist's website during cleanup procedure, 804 was originally a large clear globe of the Earth with several smaller globes and video equipment within. Promotional material on the website implied that the globe was to display images of pastoral wilderness, untouched by mankind, contrasted with visuals of abandoned human industry and decaying landmarks. Upon activation, before a small audience of prominent environmental activists and artists from the nearby community of Blankety Blank, 804 began to display its destructive properties. We can only speculate if the device's output was intentional or not, as those involved in its construction perished during the incident or have gone into hiding. While the globes within 804 rotate, all man-made artifacts within approximately 100 meters began to rapidly deteriorate until completely disintegrated. The effect applies to anything ranging from machinery to buildings, clothing, plastics, synthetic chemical compounds, and any tool more complex than a sharpened stick of wood. The area of effect grows the longer the device is active, with the effect growing ever stronger at its source. Human tissue was also affected at a slower rate of decay, causing victims to become emaciated as they lose body mass, leading up to collapse of the skeleton and death, with the body swiftly breaking down into component matter shortly thereafter. Non-human life is completely unaffected. Persons who escape the area of effect experience symptoms similar to prolonged starvation, but can return to full health with proper care. If not for the fact that it is not entirely immune to its own effect, 804 would have had the potential to remove all trace of humanity from the globe in a matter of weeks. Judging from the observed rate of destruction upon original activation versus its current capabilities under testing, 804's capabilities have been impaired by the damage it caused to itself. However, sustained use still presents an extreme threat, especially if the device is somehow refined or repaired. Due to the circumstances in which 804 was secured, it is strongly believed that the device also possesses some form of mental compulsion on those who view it, but testing is still ongoing to determine if that property has also been compromised by the decay of 804 and how it might be contained. See recovery log for further information. Oh look, there it is. Approximately 5 minutes after activation, the effect reached the nearby community of Blank. Citizens who were not at the art show initially responded with panic and made several emergency calls. Due to the extreme remote location of the town, the first response was made by a small single-prop aircraft, which arrived about 30 minutes later. Although the plane entered the area of effect and was quickly lost, the pilot did relay a radio message describing the swift and complete destruction of the town's buildings. At this point, the Foundation became aware of the situation, and teams of agents were sent to investigate. By the time the agents were able to arrive on scene, 804 had been intermittently active for nearly 8 hours, and as a result, the town and everything in a radius of data expunged was wiped clean of any trace of human civilization. Upon arrival, one plane was immediately affected. Fortunately, the crew was able to make an emergency landing before the physical structure of the plane collapsed around them. Unfortunately, their equipment and clothing was also quickly disintegrated, exposing them to the extreme cold of northern Alaska. As a result, 6 agents had to be treated for hypothermia, but all are expected to return to duty with no lasting effects. After recovering the crew of the downed plane, agents set up a perimeter and were able to observe the epicenter of 804's effect. The surviving population of Blank Blank had crowded around the remains of the device. All subjects observed were severely emaciated and suffered from severe hypothermia. Exposure had only worsened the effect of 804, and many subjects were observed with missing digits and even limbs. The survivors were approaching the device in teams of 2 to 3 to push at a single remaining globe within 804's housing in order to maintain its effect. As each subject eventually succumbed and collapsed, another from the crowd of onlookers would shuffle forward to take their place. Survivors were seen to be cheering and encouraging those who were maintaining the device until it was their turn to push the frosted globe came up. Although such manual operation was not sufficient to maintain even the radius of the effect the device had achieved before damaging itself. Agents were authorized by O5 to open fire on the crowd. Although bullets experienced the same decay as any other artifact, their velocity was enough to strike lethal wounds before decomposition. When the remaining globe of 804 ceased to spin, the effect ended, and agents were able to move in and secure the device. Survivors attempted to resist but lacked the strength to impede Foundation agents and began to act in a disoriented manner once they were removed from 804. With no adequate facilities remaining to provide shelter for them all, many survivors chose to simply lie down in the snow and die, while others attempted to provoke agents into using lethal force upon them. Those who were taken into custody refused to answer any questions and were able to refuse enough care that they did not recover from their physical decay. As exposure to the extreme elements of northern Alaska appears to adequately contain 804 by freezing its remaining machinery in place, it was decided to leave the device on site and under guard along with a data expunged, in the unlikely event that a hostile faction attempts to secure the object, or the device, whatever. Addendum. 804 is not to be contained within any Foundation facility until it is certain that we will be able to prevent anyone from being compelled to activate or maintain the rotation of the globe. Even a few minutes of 804's effect could destroy its own containment and seriously compromise any other containment nearby. Contingency 804X data expunged. Memetic Research Report revised July 11th by Dr. Johannes Sorts. This is the 3rd annual review of any supernatural memetic component to 804, and we still have not produced any significant results. It is time to put the controversy on 804 memetic properties to rest once and for all. Yes, 804 possesses memetic properties, and yes, these properties were responsible for driving the survivors of its activation event into sacrificing themselves to maintain the device. But there's nothing especially virulent or dangerous about SCP-804's memetic properties. Only a few select personality types outlined in the attached report have any desire to reactivate the device. Most notable are the D-class sociopaths who show similar amusement when presented with a big red button that says "kill everything." We've been looking at this all wrong. There's no magical compulsion that could drive so many people to destroy themselves. It does not need to be. Everything we observed during recovery can be explained by mundane group dynamics and human nature. The device had just wiped away all trace of the work and the lives of a reclusive artist and activist community. The buildings crumbled into dust so fast that people were not even injured in the collapse. And at the center of it all, a world without man turned around and around on this increasingly rickety platform, offering a deadly premise that had been presented to them as an ideal. A cure for the virus known as humanity. So why did a group of activists throw themselves and their neighbors into the deadly workings of a machine that they thought was going to wipe all human life off of Mother Earth? They simply wanted to do it. And that brings us to the poison wood foal, which again sounds like it's probably a deer made of wood that's poisonous. And I was right on the money with that. SCP-805 is to be kept in a stable in Sector Blank. This is to be locked shut at night with at least one guard of level 2 clearance or above, stationed at the main door at all times. During daylight, personnel of level 3 clearance or above with adequate equine handling, or is it equine? Horse handling skills are allowed to and encouraged to interact with 805, provided they are wearing full body coverings or hazmat suits. 805 is to be treated like a normal young horse and is allowed into the adjoining courtyard for exercise during the day. I wonder why I kept thinking foal was a deer. I don't know. At this time, samples may be taken from 805 for testing. Staff are reminded that 805 will react to inappropriate treatment like a normal horse, which resulted in incident data expunged. I guess we won't get to find out what happened if they won't even tell us what the incident number is. Any personnel found to be mistreating 805 will be immediately removed from the area and clearance to 805 revoked. I don't know, man. The incident kind of sounds like if they mistreat 805, they're going to die regardless. I don't think they're going to have to be removed from the area. Anyway, SCP-805 is an assortment of branches and roots twisted into the shape of a young horse, 101.6 centimeters high. Its interior is completely hollow of any organs, however the object is mobile, mimicking the movement and instincts of a typical young foal. It is drawn towards human presences, actively seeking contact with skin, and has been reported as being very friendly when approached. It does not require food or water, and there has been no growth recorded since containment in 2000-something. Scrapings of wood from its frame have revealed it to be of an unknown species related to the poison oak plant, Toxicodendron diversilobum. Yeah, I probably said that wrong. Upon contact with 805, human skin shows signs of irritation not unlike that caused by poison oak. The skin turns red and begins to itch as small red bumps erupt from the flesh. No remedy prescribed for poison oak will ease the itching or rash. 2 to 3 days after the rash has appeared, the irritation will flare and spread rapidly until the entire surface of the skin is covered. Subjects have reported excruciating pain both internal and external, with skin beginning to change color between pale brown or green. Movement in the joints becomes stiff and increasingly more difficult. As the internal body pressure rises, blood will be forced out various orifices of the subject, including their eyes and fingernails. That's not orifices. That's fingernails. Bone width increases and muscle is absorbed into the widening bones, and which thicken rapidly, causing data expunge with the subject's body like that of 805 itself. The transformation has been observed to take 3 to 8 hours, depending on how much bare skin was infected by 805, each result ending with the subject data expunged. X-rays have shown them to be completely hollow inside. However, it is theorized that the subject may still be aware and conscious, as despite no mobility, pulse, or breathing found post-transformation. The remains have been observed creaking and groaning as if attempting to move. They do not respond to tests with normal stimuli, and most noises appear to occur when in the vicinity of 805. These corpses do not carry the infection of 805 to other humans, but it is still recommended that they are handled with thick gloves to prevent splinters. Remains are to be observed for a time after transformation before being incinerated. Denim 1. SCP-805 was discovered in the blank countryside, with authorities alerting the Foundation after a series of data expunged. 805 did not resist capture and containment, but resulted in the deaths of blank staff during this time. Its origin and age are unknown. Was that event featured? Does that mean it shows up later on during something else? Probably. But we'll worry about that later. For now, that about does it for this episode of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the next episode, we're going to check out the Resurrection Projection, Heart Attack on a Plate, the Mechanical Choir, Combat Boots, and the Never Want Lamp. If you liked it, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you only do either one of those things, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Later.